Hey everyone, I'm Jack 66, and let's just get straight to it. Let's talk about the Zack Cregger Resident Evil reboot film. So recently, some scripts got leaked, or a script got leaked for the film, and a lot of people are divided. Now, I never thought I'd find myself saying that. I thought that a lot of people would be on the other side of the fence, and not really liking where he's taking this, and how he's perceiving this series that we all love so much, right? And it never ceases to amaze me how Hollywood can take something that is beloved, that has so much lore and history, and completely fuck it up. I mean, at first, like everyone, I thought Zack Cregger, he directed Barbarian, he directed Weapons. I just saw Weapons; it was a decent film. So his director status, like his directing chops. I was thinking, yeah, this is the guy. This guy's going to get it, right? He's played 4 countless times, just finished Requiem, he streamed his playthrough of Resident Evil 4. I thought, yeah, this guy gets it. How wrong I was. This script has had me completely baffled the whole time that it's actually been leaked. It was consequently taken down very quickly, and I didn't get to read the whole thing, but through people talking about it on Reddit and seeing comments on YouTube videos, various YouTube videos, I'm kind of piecing everything together and getting a gist of exactly what it is. And the problem is, a lot of people are coping at the moment. They absolutely love Zack Cregger, and they think, as a Resident Evil fan, he's gonna bring it. I'm on the other side of the fence where I don't think he's actually going to pull this off. I don't think I'm going to be happy as a Resident Evil fan, personally. I don't think people like myself are going to be happy with this film and with his take on Resident Evil. But there are a lot of Cregger fans that, have this kind of coping mechanism at the moment where they're like, oh, it's, it hasn't been spoiled. It's just rumours. It's not rumours. There's a lot from the script that leaked that recently got revealed in like the teaser trailer at CinemaCon, or was it CinemaCon or was it Comic-Con? Okay, so it got sort of revealed at Comic-Con, and a lot of it added up to the stuff that the leaks had pushed forward. And on top of that, we have sort of a lot of the synopsis kind of adding up with the leaks as well. So I don't doubt that the leaks weren't actually true. They got taken down, and now everything that's going to follow is going to add up to the leaks. And we have things like, this is where it gets confusing. I've heard that you guys are going to be pissed when you hear this. I've heard that there's supposed to be some sort of alien blood injected into, I'm guessing, the T virus, or whatever virus he's deciding. I'm thinking it's the T virus, because it does mention the T virus from what I've heard people say on Reddit. And the other things I've heard is that some alien blood has been injected into the T virus. That's how they created the T virus. So my mind is going towards a Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead, right, where they had like synthetic android zombies, and then I heard, if I can remember this properly, I heard that it's maybe like they're alien or something, okay? And so then it made me think, okay, so the virus that kicked everything off, that the military were transporting in the beginning of that film, is alien in origin. And I feel like Cregger is maybe taking that route because he's inspired by Army of the Dead, which I thought was a fucking trash pile of a film. And I don't know how the hell Snyder came up with stuff like that from like his excellent Dawn of the Dead remake. So I feel like Cregger, being that he's a Hollywood type and he's in these circles at the moment, he wants to just shove everything in there basically. And I'm guessing the alien sort of zombie hybrid thing could make its way into this film. Now, having said that, I've also heard that apparently from the recent trailer, the teaser trailer, and I guess some recent information, is that the alien blood stuff, that's not actually in the film. I've heard that as well. So who knows at this point? I don't know. Like I said, I didn't get to read the leaks, and so it could have been in the leaks. Who knows, right? But I hope that's not the case, because there's going so far off a cliff, yeah, from the established IP, and then there's literally jumping, into a cavern, right? And this is jumping into a cavern. Like this is insanity when it comes to Resident Evil. It's so far removed from what Resident Evil is, if this is the case, that I won't even go and see this. I would actually get up and walk out of the cinema. You know, and this is someone who's had to sit through the Mila Jovovich films and also Welcome to Raccoon City, okay? But I would literally get up and I'd walk out of the cinema because that shit doesn't belong in Resident Evil. We've never delved into aliens, like, ever. So let's not do that. Now, the reason why I'm talking about leaks to do with the Resident Evil movies is because they're pretty much shit, right? Let's be honest. At this point, it's sounding like Welcome to Raccoon City is going to be the most faithful. And that's depressing. Let's be honest, that's depressing, right? It had some good moments, but man, that film, it fucking dropped the ball hard, yeah? And that was another guy that said, I'm a fan of the games, yeah, I love the games, okay? I think he was more of a fan than fucking Paul Anderson, but then, yeah, Paul Anderson, the same thing. Oh, I'm a fan of the games, I love the games, same fucking thing. It was an early 2000s film, so at least he had that, you know, he had that to back him up, at least. There wasn't too many great video game films at the time. And the first Resident Evil film, it's a 7 out of 10. It's enjoyable. Do you know what I mean? And I'd say, like, Welcome to Raccoon City, you know, I'd say it's like a 6.5 out of 10. Just because some of those moments I do really like, and I guess as a fan, as a long-time fan, the bits in the mansion, the RPD, the outside of the RPD, the fact that it kind of tried to keep the survival horror element, you know, from the games. Just things like that. I like Chris. I like the guy who played Chris. You know, yeah, it drops the ball hard, definitely. It's still, I don't know how to really try and explain this, but there's still moments I like about the film, you know. I like the build up with the dog in the car park, even though the CG is complete shit. I think that bit was awesome. Like, but the problem is every time that it does something right, it does like 10 things wrong. That was the problem with that film. When it comes to the movies, like unless I'm hearing really, really good things and like, wow, this is literally like a recreation of the first Resident Evil game, but the director has made it his own thing. Unless I'm hearing stuff like that, and great praise, you know, and applause, then I don't really care about spoiling the fucking films, okay? It's the games that I care about, the lore of the games that I care about, that I don't want to spoil, and I think I'm going to wait until I get some concrete evidence and then I'll cover that. When it comes to the films, I couldn't give a damn. So, let's get into it. Let's talk about, other than the alien stuff that's been floating around, which is fucking weird, let's talk about the synopsis and what people were saying when they came out of the cinema from test screenings, you know, and just everything that's been floating around. Okay, so people have come out of the test screenings and said it's a good film, like it was enjoyable, but it has nothing to do with Resident Evil. So the rumors of him having a script that was kind of based on Resident Evil. I'm guessing Resident Evil 4 because of this tentacle-based mutation sort of synopsis, or you know, blurb in a synopsis. I'm guessing that he had this script floating around and they picked it up. Maybe he shopped it to Konstantin and Konstantin said, yes, sweet, we'll slap the name on it, we'll slap Resident Evil on it, and you've got a Resident Evil film. Okay, so it brings in all the fans. It basically dupes all the fans and then brings in like people that have no clue about Resident Evil, or at least only know about the films. You know, it dupes people basically. This is what they're trying to do, is dupe you into going in to see this film, you know. And as a long-time fan, a lot of long-time fans, you know, they're hoping that we get duped, because there's a lot of us, right? Going by Requiem sales in the first week, there's a lot of Resident Evil fans at this point. They want to dupe people like me and you into going to see this film that he's made, that really has fuck all to do with the IP that it's based upon, yeah, or they're claiming it's based upon. And something recently happened in regards to the latest Mummy film, where Lee Cronin actually came out and said, yeah, this actually had nothing to do with the Mummy. So he added stuff in there, you know, but that kind of had a connection to the Mummy. We're not talking about the Brendan Fraser film, but just in general, you know, the Mummy. Like, it has a connection to the Mummy, but realistically, he said, yeah, the script had nothing to do with the Mummy originally. So they're doing this a lot. Hollywood is running out of ideas. They are literally just buying scripts that have nothing to do with an IP, and then slapping the IP name on it and changing a few little things when it comes to actually the production of the film and directing the film. You know, and that's what they're coming up with. And this is exactly what they're doing with the Resident Evil film. This is what Zack Cregger's Resident Evil sounds like. At this point, I'm convinced Hollywood don't even care anymore. They're not bothered. They want to dupe us all into going to see these films that have nothing to do really with the IP. Like I said, they're based upon, and that's sad. It's a sad state of affairs when when anyone, including Hollywood, have to do that to get butts in seats, essentially. So the test screenings have been positive in terms of it's looking like a great horror film. I was going to say zombie film, but apparently technically it's not a zombie film from what I'm hearing. Recently, literally like last night, some stuff that I was reading, that it's not actually a zombie film. So yeah, this horror film, people came out of the test screening saying, yeah, it's fun. It's like a splat stick type horror film, so a bit like Evil Dead, a bit like Shaun of the Dead. I'm trying to think, Slither, a little bit like The Crazies. It's kind of like in that same vein, but it literally has nothing to do with Resident Evil. That's what a lot of people have said. And then going by the synopsis, it says that this character, Brian, he's an organ courier. He's driving through at the moment it's an unnamed location, and he basically gets stuck in the ice. He hits a zombie woman, so I guess maybe that happens concurrently. He's stopped by police, chased by a mutated dog, and then he's chased by what they call zombies, but I've heard different. They're not actually zombies. So he, like, during the teaser trailer, it said there's zombies throwing themselves off buildings to get to him. I've heard that there's also this like super zombie type thing. It's basically like a pursuer enemy, so a little bit like Nemesis apparently, and this will become clear in a minute. He's chased by this dog. At some point he finds an upturned police car, and he manages to get a vest, a flak jacket, and I'm guessing a gun. And on the flak jacket it says RCPD. Now anyone who's familiar with the games will see the first mistake. You'll see the first mistake. It's RPD. It's always been RPD from the very first iteration of Resident Evil 2. Right, the original Resident Evil 2, it was RPD. In the remake, it was RPD. In Resident Evil 3 and Resident Evil Nemesis, it's RPD. Like, it's never changed. We've had the RPD costume in Resident Evil 4, the original, and the remake, and just, even in Requiem, I believe, right? So, how are you going to get something like that wrong? It's not RCPD, it never has been. Heath Salt Raccoon City Police Department, RCP. No, it's always been RPD. So that's the first hint at this guy's going to fuck it up. Now, it also says in various synopsises that I've read that the zombies are more like alien zombies. So this is also another hint that this could be straying so far away from Resident Evil and leaning more into, like, are the zombies alien in origin type of territory. Because if that's the case, then mate, I don't think people that aren't even familiar with Resident Evil are going to like this. I think that they're going to think you're a massive hack. And this is the problem. Like, this guy is actually a decent horror director. I'm not saying that this guy is a proven, tried and tested horror director, because he's only come up with 2 films. But they were decent. They weren't mind-blowing, don't get it twisted. They weren't fucking amazing. They weren't like the most amazing horror films I've ever watched in my life. But they weren't bad, They were quality films. But if you drop the ball on this, you're not only going to piss off moviegoers that don't like that sort of goofy shit, right? That's why Army of the Dead didn't do very well, and why he never actually went full throttle with it. He just hinted that there was, some alien origins to the zombies. You're also going to piss off the fan base as well. But a lot of us at this point in time, we've actually decided not to bother going and seeing this film until we get some concrete evidence that it's a decent Resident Evil film. But from what I'm hearing, from the script leaks and everything else, I don't think I'll be wasting my money to go and see this dumpster fire. I've been burned too many times, okay? So I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll have to see. If it turns out that all this is complete made up bullshit, which I doubt, because the synopsises and the test screenings have come out and pretty much corroborated what people are saying about the leaks, then it's bad times. I mean, stuff like, the plot description saying that Brian gets into various funny situations with zombie dogs, zombie babies, and an obese zombie that spits acid, which apparently was shown during the teaser trailer. There is a zombie that spits acid. So a really big fucking huge zombie that spits acid, which gives me Resident Evil 6 vibes for some reason, or even the fat molded from RE7. So again, he's just taking things from whatever game and just throwing it in there. So I mean, you know, he said that Evil Dead 2 is an inspiration. When I watch Evil Dead 2, I love that film for what it is. I don't want Resident Evil to be Evil Dead 2. I know that Resident Evil has borrowed from Evil Dead and Terminator and Alien and just all types of horror films, you know, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead. I get that. Yeah, Day of the Dead recently. Requiem borrows from Day of the Dead. It was great, and like Silence of the Lambs and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We go on and on and on. I know Resident Evil borrows from various horror films, including zombie films, but it adapts it so well. That's the thing. It never goes too far, you know, in my opinion. Now, Cregger, he backpedaled. That's the thing. He backpedaled recently because Requiem had done so well and people really like the story of Requiem. Some don't, some do. It's divisive in its own way. I personally didn't mind the story, I liked it. Yeah, it's got a few things that are a bit hokey and a bit just, you know, silly. But I liked it overall, okay? Is it like a popcorn, sort of shut your brain off popcorn kind of, you know, flick type of story? Yeah, 100%, but I loved it for what it was. I enjoyed it. You know, I think the simplicity of Resident Evil has since gone. You know, I think that now anything we get that is told competently and has a decent game attached to it in terms of gameplay and the rest and the horror is hitting the mark. I think we can accept it. When it comes to a film that I got to sit there that doesn't have the gameplay or the cool soundtrack or this or that, you know, and I've got to sit there for 90 minutes and watch something that's going to offend me, then yeah, there's a big difference. So he's backpedaled recently and said, I think I'm going to get crucified by the fans. That's another thing that you know, that bolsters the leaks as well, that he's saying I'm going to get crucified by the fans, you know. And yeah, I think there's some people that aren't going to like it. It's mate, you're backpedaling. You're basically trying to back yourself up because you made something that isn't Resident Evil. It's a script that's floating around that, once again, like Paul W.S. Anderson, you slap the Resident Evil name on it. The only difference is the Paul Anderson film, it really did work. Like when it came to creating it, you know, it was an actual script that I think was literally ripped from Resident Evil, and so it worked. It really worked. But with this, it doesn't sound remotely like Resident Evil. That's the thing. It sounds like a completely different script that he was just toying around with and wrote in one night or whatever, and bang, now it's got the RE name. I'm just not hopeful, and I'm not hopeful when I hear about things like zombies throwing themselves off of buildings, tentacles coming from their mouths and fucking other bits and pieces on their body. You know, the zombie dog or whatever, the mutated dog's supposed to have like tentacles that erupt from its mouth. Cool, that gives me RE4 type vibes, right? But then the rest of the bioweapons, yeah, these sort of zombie slash just infected, yeah, they can, like, I don't know, grab other zombies and the tentacles attach, and it's like The Thing, basically. Like, they just assimilate each other, right? And then this giant zombie, this pursuer enemy, he's chasing, you know, Brian throughout the whole kind of runtime, and he's getting bigger and stronger and mutating more, and that's fine. I'm cool with that, but apparently it's just tentacles. It's like the guy's got an obsession with some hentai or something. Like he's throwing tentacles in there, and that's it. That's all you're getting. You're not getting hunters. You're not getting lickers. You're not getting Mr. X. You know, you're not actually getting a proper nemesis. It's Ouroboros, but just for the whole fucking film, like the whole runtime, it's Ouroboros. It's just tentacles. That's really lazy. With the amount that this film has been given for production, that's fucking lazy, man. I don't want to see something like that. I don't want to just see tentacles coming out of fucking infected. Like, I want to see some hunters. I want to see some cool shit from the games. And he's not giving that to us, apparently. You know? It's essentially just these zombies slash infected, could be alien zombies at this point, who knows, chasing Brian with like one dog, and then apparently some midget zombie babies or something, some zombie toddlers that he fights off with a mop. Yeah. So there's this whole other like subplot where he's trying to ring his girlfriend, his pregnant girlfriend. Why that's in the film, I don't know. And he goes into this abandoned house, or it's just, like, yeah, this house is I don't know, like it's run down or something. I can't remember the exact details on that. And he uses a phone, and I think he gets through to her, and he tells her he's going to be home soon. I don't know whether she lives in Raccoon City. That would make sense, I guess, if he's couriering this box, or whatever it is, with organs in, to Raccoon City. He tells her he'll be home, and then apparently that's when some shit kicks off. At one point he finds himself in a warehouse, in some sewers, I believe, and on a construction site, and shit kicks off in those particular locations. He eventually apparently gets to Raccoon City. He meets Paul Waterhouse's character, who's an employee of Umbrella, and he tells him to get the package to the 28th floor. Oh yeah, another thing is, I think he gets infected by one of these zombie dogs at one point. So he's already infected. He during this time he fights off these toddler zombies apparently. And this makes me think of like Resident Evil 3, the original Resident Evil 3, the RE3 remake. How we got hunters, they were both present for both of those games, like for the original and the remake, in the hospital, and it was a great moment, right? What do we get here? Zombie toddlers. Yeah, toddler infected that he fights with a mop. Great, riveting stuff. Yeah, as a fan, that's what I want to see. No, it's not. Like, that's not what I want to see. And you get this pursuer enemy, who's grown bigger, stronger, mutated more, and he's chasing him as well. And there's apparently like an action scene in an elevator as he's getting to the top floor. And then as he gets to the top floor, he doesn't realise, because they've got a cure for him, doesn't realise he's fully changed. Like, he's actually, he's completely like mutated, and he apparently turns into what they said is a little bit like a tyrant. And he just murks the whole of the Umbrella staff on this floor, kills them all, and so doesn't get cured, and that's how it ends. Great. So it's not only is it a bad adaptation, a representation of the source material, but also it's got a real dour, depressing shit ending as well. Like, I wouldn't mind if the film was like 100%, as they say, no gas. No brakes and all gas, adaptation of Resident Evil, and then it had this dour, depressing ending. I'd be like, okay, cool, yeah, it would hit different. As it is, I'm just going to be like, right, I'm going to be pissed off watching the whole film, and then you're going to give me a depressing shit ending. Doesn't sound too great to me. It doesn't sound like I should waste my £13 on a ticket. And also, if you guys aren't convinced that he has no real clue about how this film should be adapting the games, it's set in December. Snow is the first red flag. I've never seen Raccoon City during snowfall, and apparently it's set in the present day. It's not even set in 1998. These are things that Welcome to Raccoon City got right, for fuck's sake. From a director that doesn't even have the clout that Cregger has. I mean, just here, as I'm scrolling through Reddit and trying to find other bits of information, people are saying that everything culminates in some zombies throwing themselves off buildings, like I'd stated previously, and just sort of acting like blood missiles, like blood bombs, I guess, blood mortars. There we go, and they're just hitting cars and hitting the floor and exploding everywhere. And what are we doing? Like, what is that? I mean, looking at this one person on Reddit, this is there's a huge majority, like I said, who excuse this, and I don't really understand it. He says, I saw people in another post unaware of who Cregger is saying. He must have begged to use the Resident Evil name just for recognition, laugh out loud. As if they don't need him more than he needs them. A lot of RE is goofy and won't play out on the screen how fans think it will. Okay. Enjoy the games, and we can have new stories take place in the world that aren't burdened by unrealistic expectations. Let good, great directors helm them, and it can work well. So, he obviously loves Zack Cregger. When he says it's not going to play out on the screen how fans think, so you're telling me the G virus, an example, the G virus constantly mutating things, yeah, including animals, plant life, whatever, right? Having sort of Birkin mutating constantly as a pursuer, that's not going to work on screen. Of course it would. You're telling me the nemesis pursuing your character, like your protagonist, or I don't know, hunters instead of zombie toddlers appearing in the hospital wouldn't work? Is this what you're saying? Of course it would. What are you talking about? Like, you're literally saying, like, they already created films that had the T virus and the effects of the T virus. How will that not work? And the G virus. How does that not work? They were some of the best things of those films. So how are you saying that that doesn't work? A village in rural Spain with villagers and fucking tentacles and shit, like these fucking parasites popping out of their necks and acting as these heads. Of course it's going to work. What are you talking about? What are you on about? The regenerators in general would work as an enemy that would scare the living shit out of people. Adapt RE7. Do your own thing. It doesn't have to be RE7 and adaptation in the one for one way. It could just be adapting from Resident Evil 7, but like its own sort of take on that story. Having the Bakers chasing someone around, or or I don't know, whatever you adapted it into, but still borrowed heavily from RE7, that could work. It's worked countless times. That's why Halloween and Friday the 13th, are so successful. That's why Alien is so successful. Like, what are we doing here? We're basically glazing Zack Cregger, and he's had 2 films to his name. And it's only because he was on Whitest Kids That You Know. I don't know, because I've never watched it. I'm from the UK, okay? It's more of a popular thing in America. That's why you're glazing this guy. Like, from what I'm hearing, this has fuck all to do with the source material. And, a lot of arguments try and say, well, there's some arguments that bring in the Biohazard 4D Executor, film. You can go and watch it on YouTube if you want to. And how that kind of had, like, weird mutations. And this film eerily, it eerily kind of copies from that. It's strange. But I don't know whether he has actually taken that and just adapted it onto the script. But yeah, okay. But that's like, if I remember right, that was just like a fun little thing. Kind of like a Universal ride, essentially, that Capcom created. And and you could go and watch it and watch it in 3D, if I remember right. And it was just meant to be fun. It wasn't meant to be like canon and do you know what I mean? And adding to the lore. And a lot of people kind of use it as an excuse. And alright, whatever. But at the same time, like, it wasn't actually popular over here. Like, it wasn't popular in the West. It was probably just popular in Japan. It's very obscure, so it's a very obscure thing to maybe adapt, I guess. But yeah, like, if I'm looking at that, and then I look at something like the original Resident Evil 2, which one am I going to pick? Resident Evil 2, obviously. Like, the 4D Execute was just sort of like this experiment. Do you know what I mean? It was an experiment. I think it's cool they had the UBCS, but other than that, that's what it was, and it's not really known outside of Japan. That's the thing. So that would be a weird thing to adapt into a film. Does it sound very similar? Yes, it does. It sounds like a mix of RE4, a little bit of 5, and then the 4D Executor. Just very, very strange. Like, almost like he was trying to find something so obscure to adapt it, and it's like that, flew across his YouTube timeline. Like, he went, yeah, I'll do that. I don't know. Or maybe this is just an original thing, it's just coincidence. I don't know. But you can't use that as an excuse. You really can't. Because, at the same time, that would be lazy. Adapting something that no one has a fucking clue about. And that you're thinking, oh, well, I could adapt that and no one's going to know. So, yeah. That's lazy in itself. All in all, I just think that this film sounds like dead on arrival. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna spoil it because I want to know exactly how the film plays out before I go to the cinema and pay my money to watch it. As it is, it's looking like one that I generally do not want to go to the cinema to see, and I could easily leave, definitely. And that's the problem. That's the problem, because on the other side of the fence, like I said, there's people like me that they just won't spend their money to go and see this. That's the issue you have, right? There's going to be a lot of fans like myself that are going to feel the same way. I've seen it. in YouTube comments and on Facebook posts and on Reddit posts, people are like, yeah, fuck that, I'm not going to go bother, because we've been burned so many times that why the fuck are we going to, I might as well sit down and play Requiem again, and keep myself entertained, and that's or play the original Resident Evils on PlayStation, or the remake, or whatever game that I desire to play. I'd rather experience those stories and those plots. And Zack Cregger's film can entertain the tourists and the normies and anyone else that wants to sort of, give him a pass. At the end of the day, I'm personally not going to give him a pass. Look, at the end of the day, it's going to make money no matter what, because it's Zack Cregger, right? And he is a good director. There ain't no denying that. But if it comes to adapting something that I've pretty much loved since I was a teenager, then to be honest, in my opinion, and in my eyes, I'm going to lose a lot of respect for him as a director. It's happened with many, many directors before, but at least they've had a full body of work before I've finally gone, oh, this is terrible. And they're not as great as they used to be. James Cameron, Ridley Scott, Sam Raimi, there's countless directors, Steven Spielberg producing all those crappy Jurassic World films. It's happened loads, right? Even Tenet, I wasn't a fan of Tenet, and I love Christopher Nolan. I don't think that Christopher Nolan had put out a bad film up until that point. But Tenet, yeah, I just didn't like that film. And it just... I'm like, you're allowed one flop, definitely. But I just thought, what happened? Like, Tenet was just... It just had none of the cleverness of his previous films. And it had so many plot holes. It's such a weird film. So... a lot of people don't like The Dark Knight Rises. It's kind of like a love-hate thing with that film. It's got good parts, it's got bad parts, But overall, I think it was an alright ending to the trilogy. But at least these directors they've had a full body of work. Like, they've had countless films until maybe they had one dud or two duds, or, like Cameron just can't seem to capture the old days. But yeah, with Cregger, he's had 2 films. It's like, if you fuck up Resident Evil, which is sounding like you are, or you have done, then I'm probably going to stay away from your films in the future. That's the problem, you see. So I just wanted to sort of talk about the the leaks and this film, this latest adaptation of Resident Evil. A lot of people keep throwing you can't condense the Spencer Mansion incident into a 90-minute film. Who said anything, about 90 minutes? You could do it for a little bit longer. It could be like a 2-hour film. And also, you can. They managed to condense it in a film that had both the RE2 plots and the RE1 plots. They managed to condense the Spencer Mansion into a short little segment in Welcome to Raccoon City. And it worked. That's the thing. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. I liked it. It was my favourite part of the whole film. Yeah? They managed to condense that shit. And here's the mad thing. For that small sort of part in that whole film, right? They got the atmosphere right. I liked the zombie designs. I thought the moments of action that did sort of happen were cool. Like, the lighting was perfect. The Spencer Mansion looked great. It wasn't a one-to-one of the game Spencer Mansion, and that didn't matter. It looked like the Spencer Mansion. It was gothic. That's one thing that stood out. It had these really interesting rooms that they went into, like, with how quick it was. They managed to sort of get this stuff in the film that I literally took notice of and went, oh, that's really cool. That reminds me of the Spencer Mansion. You can condense this. Like, you could condense it into 90 minutes, 100%. But again, they don't want to do that. They want to give it to this director that wants to have tentacle monsters that may or may not have alien origins, that throw themselves off rooftops as sort of mortars, and then zombie toddlers that he's fighting with a broom, which leads to some hilarious moments for our protagonist. What is this? What are we doing? This guy's not taking it serious, for one, and 2, he's getting things like RPD wrong, and setting Raccoon City during December when it's snowing, and the film only takes place in Raccoon City as well. This is the kicker, towards the end of the film. And then I'm guessing that this hospital, or this umbrella-like complex, is literally the whole part of Raccoon City. Like, that makes up the whole part of the Raccoon City segment of the film. So, what a waste, essentially, because he's not in Raccoon City to begin with. Like, he's in this different town, like a neighbouring town or something. A bit like Renwood is to sort of Raccoon City in Requiem. So yeah, I'm not looking forward to this. I'm not hopeful, I'll be honest with you. If something comes out where it's like I'm completely wrong and people are wrong, that'd be cool. But I think from the synopsis is pretty much, you know, what the leaks have said. So yeah, fucking shame, real shame. I thought if anyone could pull it off, I would have thought that someone with his caliber could have done it. But I think at this point it's easy to say that I think they should stop adapting Resident Evil. I think Capcom should really grab those rights back from Constantine, because they've just done nothing but you know, I don't know, create messes essentially on a beloved existing IP. I think the most faithful and most true to the games is actually the original Resident Evil film. I really do, because it's so simplistic. I think that's what I like it for. It's so simplistic. It's got 3 acts, you know, maybe four acts, and it's done well. You know, it didn't piss me off. I enjoyed it. I liked it. There's some things that I thought, well, it's a bit ridiculous. You know what I mean? The whole slow-mo kicking a zombie dog, that was just ridiculous. But you know, the Matrix was big at that point, so he decided to incorporate some of that stuff into the film. But again, that film never really offended me. It never pissed me off. Like, I still think it's the best adaptation. It's not as good as his Mortal Kombat adaptation, but I think it's the best adaptation if we're not counting the CG films. I think the CG films, Generation and Damnation, are great. You know, great adaptations of the games, but they run concurrently. They're canon. So, are they adaptations really? Not really. They're just, you know, new stories in that world. They're all part of the universe. But yeah, I think this, like, I think at this point, Capcom need to relinquish the rights from Constantine. They've screwed this up way too much. It should be so easy and simple, and these absolute mongoloids cannot get it right. They can't get something as simple as a haunted house horror film with a little bit of action. They can't get that right. They can't seem to get it right. Don't forget about the series. Constantine were involved in that. Yeah, among the various live action adaptations of this IP. So they can't get it right. Cregger can't get it right. I think that's it. I'm done. Like, I think this was the last hope, definitely. You know, this was the last hope. And I really did think at first, this guy gets it, he's going to smash it. I thought, just because he said that he's played RE4 loads of times, you know, he streamed it, like, he still, like, you know, likes this franchise. Maybe not like a diehard fan of it, but he's familiar with it, you know, and he's a capable horror director. Like, he gets it. I was wrong. But that's why I didn't make any videos until I'd heard more and more about it. But now all this has come out. Yeah, it's unfortunate. What a shame. But hey, look, at the end of the day, like I said, just do like I do. Watch the CG films. Have a laugh with the old Resident Evil film. You know, maybe Welcome to Raccoon City to just see how much of a clusterfuck that was. But the good little ideas that were in there. And play the games. Most importantly, play the games. Go back and play the old ones. Play the new ones. Play the Revelations games. You know, there's a ton of stories and like resi plot there, you know, that you could experience for yourself, without having someone who essentially couldn't really give a fuck. That's what it seems like to me. If you want to make a Thing film or Evil Dead, then go and ask the rights holders of those properties to make those films. Don't make a film based on an IP, you know, and shoehorn that stuff in there. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. It's just, you might as well gone and asked, you know, the rights holders of Evil Dead. I'm sure they would have wanted to work with you. Weapons has done amazingly, right? So yeah, just do that. Don't incorporate that into an IP that doesn't really lean heavily in that direction. It borrows stuff, definitely, but it doesn't mean then you have to borrow stuff from the things that's borrowing from. Like, it still made it its own. Like Resident Evil made it its own, you know. Whereas this doesn't sound like that. It just sounds like people have said, it sounds like the creatures in it are from the thing. It's got some wacky Evil Dead splat stick stuff in it, and there's barely any Resident Evil bits, and it moves at a Fury Road pace, you know, Mad Max Fury Road pace. So clearly that's an inspiration. So yeah, that's all I've got to say about it. Let me know what you guys think about this this new live adaptation of Resident Evil in the comment section down below. Are you still going to go and see it? Or are you going to, like me, depending on whatever else comes out about it, I'm going to leave it. So yeah, we do have Street Fighter coming out, and also Mortal Kombat 2. You know, so there's that to look forward to. I think that MK2 looks really good. Street Fighter, I'm not too sure yet, because I've only seen bits and pieces of it, but in terms of being faithful, it looks good. In terms of character designs and the sort of Shadowloo story and all that, and the World Warrior story being adapted. So we'll have to see. But yeah, MK2, I've heard that apparently it's really, really good. Like, way better than the first one. So I'm looking forward to those two. Just didn't think that Resident Evil would be the one, you know, that would be the one I didn't want to see the most. Yeah, that surprised me, definitely. But I guess it's not a surprise that they fucked it. So yeah, anyway, I'm System Chat 66. Have a good rest of your week, and I'll catch you again next time. Peace.